Ladies and gentlemen, every single one of us has been in conversations where we walked away feeling drained, misunderstood, or even frustrated. Like we gave away something valuable without even realizing it. And that something is control. Control of our emotions, control of our words, and control of how we show up in that moment. You see, conversations are not just about exchanging words, they are about exchanging energy, influence, and direction. And the truth is, far too often, we hand over that power without even noticing. Maybe it's when someone presses the right button and suddenly we're defensive. Maybe it's when silence makes us uncomfortable, so we start filling the space with words we don't even mean. Or maybe it's when we seek validation from the wrong person and their opinion suddenly dictates how we feel about ourselves. What I want you to realize today is this control is not about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. When you master how you respond, how you listen, and how you stand in your own calm confidence, you stop letting conversations control you, and you start leading them. The difference between someone who feels walked over and someone who feels unshakable in conversations is not luck, it's not personality, it's awareness. Awareness of the little ways we surrender our power without even knowing it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So today, I'm going to walk you through 3 very specific ways you might be giving away control in your conversations. 3 habits that seem harmless in the moment, but can leave you powerless if you're not paying attention. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how to take that power back, calmly, respectfully, and with confidence. Because when you learn to stop giving away control, you don't just change the way you talk, you change the way people listen. You change the way they see you. And most importantly, you change the way you see yourself. Control in conversations is not about overpowering people. It is not about speaking the loudest or having the sharpest comebacks. It is about something far more important, far more meaningful, and far more impactful. It is about keeping your peace no matter what the other person says. Think about that for a moment. How often have you walked away from a conversation not frustrated with the other person, but frustrated with yourself? You replay their words in your mind. You think about what you should have said, what you shouldn't have said, and how you allowed them to get under your skin. And when you sit with that feeling long enough, you realize it wasn't their words that hurt you the most. It was the fact that you gave them control over how you felt in that moment. Keeping your peace in a conversation is the most powerful thing you can do because it communicates strength without aggression, confidence without arrogance, and calm without weakness. When you hold on to your peace, you're telling the other person, you don't get to pull me out of my character, you don't get to decide my tone, and you don't get to decide how I show up. That is mine to decide. And yet, every single day, so many people give that control away for free. A sharp comment, a rude tone, an eye roll across the table, it triggers a response. And suddenly we're defensive, we're angry, we're rushed, and we say things we regret. The irony is when we think we're fighting back, in that moment, we're actually giving them exactly what they wanted: control. Imagine a calm lake, smooth, still, clear. Now imagine someone throwing a rock into it. The water doesn't choose to splash, it reacts because it has no choice. That is what most of us do in conversations. Someone tosses in a rock. Maybe it's sarcasm, maybe it's criticism, maybe it's disrespect, and we react. We splash, we create waves. But what if you didn't have to? What if you could decide whether you ripple or not? That's the difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is automatic. Response is intentional. And keeping your peace gives you the space to respond instead of react. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. But Jefferson, if I don't react, won't people just walk all over me? Won't staying calm make me look weak? And here's the truth: calm is not weakness. Calm is control. Calm is the highest form of confidence because it says, I don't have to raise my voice to be heard. I don't have to attack to defend myself. I know who I am, and nothing you say changes that. That's not weakness. That's power. The people who appear the strongest in conversations are rarely the loudest. They are the ones who can hold their ground without losing themselves. Think about someone you deeply respect, not because they intimidate you, but because they inspire you. Chances are they don't lose their temper every time someone challenges them. They don't crumble under criticism. They don't let other people's moods dictate their own. What they do is hold on to their peace, and that makes them magnetic. It makes people lean in It makes people listen. Because when you're calm, you can think clearly. And when you think clearly, you can communicate effectively. Keeping your peace also has another hidden power. It disarms the other person. You see, conflict thrives on reaction. If someone yells and you yell back, the fire doubles in size. But if someone yells and you remain calm, the fire has nowhere to go. It burns out on its own. That doesn't mean you stay silent. It doesn't mean you allow disrespect. It means you choose to respond in a way that serves you, not in a way that costs you your peace. And when you do that consistently, you stop being the person who gets pulled into emotional tug-of-wars and you become the anchor. People start to realize that no matter what they throw your way, you will not be moved. That's when you know you've taken back control. Let me give you an example. Picture yourself in a meeting. Someone across the table disagrees with your idea, not respectfully, but with sarcasm, maybe even condescension. Most people's instinct would be to jump in, to defend themselves immediately, to match the energy they just received. But what if you didn't? What if you paused, stayed calm, and said, "I hear your concern. Can you explain what specifically doesn't work for you?" That one calm response flips the dynamic. Instead of escalating the tension, you put the responsibility back on them to clarify. And suddenly, you're not the defensive one. You're the composed one. You're not the one who looks flustered. They do. That is the power of keeping your peace. Or think about a personal relationship. Maybe it's a family member who knows exactly how to push your buttons. They know what words to use to get a reaction because they've seen it before. Every time you rise to the bait, the cycle repeats. But the first time you don't take it. The first time you respond with calm instead of chaos. You break the pattern. You send the message. That doesn't work anymore. You don't get to control me with your words. And that shift not only changes how they see you, it changes how you see yourself. The real challenge, of course, is that keeping your peace doesn't come naturally. It takes practice. It takes awareness. It takes catching yourself in that moment where your emotions are ready to run the show and asking, do I want to react or do I want to respond? Do I want to give away my peace or do I want to hold on to it? And the more often you choose peace, the easier it becomes. The calmer you stay, the stronger your voice sounds, not louder, stronger. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the bottom line. The people who win conversations are not the ones who dominate. They are the ones who don't lose themselves in the process. Every time you keep your peace, you're not just protecting yourself in that conversation. You're training yourself for every conversation after that. You're building the kind of inner strength that no one can take from you unless you hand it over. And that is why keeping your peace is not just a choice. It's the ultimate form of control. Ladies and gentlemen, conversations shape our lives more than we realize. They build relationships, they open doors, they close them, they bring people together, and they can also tear people apart. Every conversation we have, whether it's at work, at home, or in passing, has the power to influence not just how others see us, but how we see ourselves. And yet, there's a trap most of us fall into, often without even noticing. The trap is simple, but dangerous. We let other people decide how we feel. And the moment you let someone else decide how you feel, you've already handed them the steering wheel of the conversation. Think about that imagery for a second. Imagine you're driving a car. You're focused on the road. You know your destination. You know the speed you're comfortable at. And then suddenly you hand the wheel to someone sitting in the passenger seat. They grab it, jerk it left, speed up, slam the brakes. Suddenly, you're not in control anymore. The car is still yours, but the direction isn't. That's exactly what happens when we let someone else dictate our emotions in a conversation. The words are theirs, but the reaction is ours. And if they're steering how we react, they're steering the entire exchange. Now, why do we do this? Why do we hand over something as personal, as valuable, as sacred as our emotional control to other people? Often, it's because we don't recognize it's happening. A harsh tone from a boss, a dismissive comment from a partner, a sarcastic remark from a colleague, it catches us off guard. We feel insulted, and in that moment, without even thinking, we react. We get defensive, we argue back, we raise our voices, or worse, we shut down completely. And while it feels justified in that moment, what we don't see is that we've just surrendered control. The person who triggered us now dictates the direction of the conversation, because instead of responding intentionally, we're reacting emotionally. Let's take a real-world example. You're at work, presenting an idea you've spent hours perfecting. A coworker interrupts with a sarcastic, "Well, that'll never work." Instantly, you feel that flush of heat in your chest. Your instinct. Fire back. Maybe you say something equally dismissive. Maybe you start defending yourself frantically. Either way, the energy shifts. You're no longer calmly leading the conversation. You're following their lead. They tug the wheel and you let them. But here's the reality: their comment didn't derail your idea. Your reaction did. Now let's flip that. Same scenario, you present your idea. They interrupt with sarcasm. But instead of reacting, you breathe, you pause, you stay calm, and you respond with something like, "That's an interesting perspective. What specifically makes you think it won't work?" Suddenly, you've taken back control. You've turned their jab into an opportunity for clarity. You're no longer the passenger. You're firmly in the driver's seat. And not only do you look composed to everyone else in the room, but you've also kept your peace intact. The truth is, when you hand people control over your emotions, you make yourself predictable. And predictable people are easy to manipulate. Think about that family member who knows exactly which buttons to press. They don't even have to try hard. One sentence, one tone of voice, and you're off. They've steered the conversation before it even begins. But imagine how different things would be if they tried the same tactic and you didn't bite. Imagine if instead of reacting, you stayed calm, you stayed curious, you stayed grounded. Suddenly, they don't have the same power. Suddenly, the steering wheel is back in your hands. And let me be clear, this doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. It doesn't mean pretending you're not hurt or frustrated. It means mastering the ability to choose how and when you express those emotions, instead of letting someone else pull them out of you like a puppet on strings. That's what true control looks like. It's not bottling up, it's channeling. Now, here's the challenge. We live in a culture that often glorifies reaction. Quick comebacks, clapbacks, instant responses, they're celebrated. But here's the thing, being quick isn't the same as being effective. The loudest voice in the room isn't always the strongest. The strongest voice is the one that remains calm when everyone else is losing it. The strongest voice is the one that chooses clarity over chaos. The strongest voice is the one that refuses to hand over the steering wheel. Picture this in a personal relationship. You and your partner are in the middle of a disagreement. They raise their voice, accuse you of something unfair, or say something they don't mean. Now, the easy thing, the natural thing, is to match their energy, to raise your voice back, to throw your own accusations, to escalate. And suddenly, the argument spirals out of control. But what if you chose differently? What if, in that heated moment, you said, "I want to understand where you're coming from, but I also want us to talk about this respectfully"? That doesn't just change the tone. It changes the trajectory. You've refused to let their anger dictate yours. You've refused to hand over the steering wheel. And by doing that, you've given the conversation a chance to lead somewhere productive instead of destructive. The irony is, the more control you give away, the less respect you gain. People may listen to your words, but they're watching your reactions. If you're easily provoked, easily thrown off, easily rattled, they know it. And whether they use it against you or not, they recognize that your control isn't yours. But when you remain steady, when you remain calm, when you refuse to let anyone else dictate your emotions, you gain respect without even asking for it. People don't respect perfection. They respect composure. Let's talk about leadership. Great leaders aren't the ones who always have the right answer. They're the ones who can remain composed under pressure. Imagine a team in crisis. Deadlines are tight, stress is high, people are snapping at each other. The leader who panics, who lashes out, who lets their frustration spill all over the team, they lose trust instantly. But the leader who stays calm, who listens, who steadies the room, that leader earns loyalty. Why? Because they didn't let the chaos control them. They kept their hands on the wheel. They set the tone, and everyone else followed. Now, you may be wondering, how do you actually do this? How do you stop letting other people decide how you feel? It starts with awareness. You have to notice the moments where your emotions are being hijacked. Pay attention to your triggers. Who are the people that tend to push your buttons? What are the words, the tones, the situations that tend to knock you off balance? When you can name them, you can prepare for them. And when you prepare for them, you can meet them with intention instead of reaction. The second step is pausing. I know it sounds simple, but it's powerful. Before you respond, pause. Take a breath. Give yourself that split second to choose whether you're reacting or responding. That tiny gap between stimulus and response. That's where your power is. That's where you decide whether you're handing over the steering wheel or keeping it in your hands. The third step is reframing. Instead of seeing someone's comment as an attack, see it as information. See it as a clue about who they are, not who you are. Their words don't define you. They define them. When you shift your perspective that way, their power over you disappears. Because suddenly you realize this isn't about me. This is about them. And with that realization, you've already taken back control. Ladies and gentlemen, conversations will always be part of our lives. Some will be uplifting, some will be challenging, some will test every ounce of patience we have. But in every single one, you have a choice: give away control or keep it. And the moment you decide that no one else gets to dictate your emotions, no one else gets to steer your response, no one else gets to hold the wheel, you become unshakable. The truth is, the world doesn't need more people who can win arguments. It needs more people who can stay grounded in the storm. It needs more people who can set the tone instead of being pulled into chaos. It needs more people who refuse to hand over the steering wheel of their peace. Because when you stop giving away that control, you don't just change conversations. You change relationships, you change outcomes, and you change yourself. And so the challenge I leave you with today is this: the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, don't hand them the wheel. Stay calm, stay steady, stay in control, because the moment you let someone else decide how you feel, you've lost. But the moment you take that power back, you've already won.